This is Tyrese Haliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
What's up, Pacer Nation? Welcome in to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast, Setting the Pace. I'm your host, Alex Golden, and on this episode of Setting the Pace, I thought it would be a good idea to get a Clippers perspective on what Ivica Zubac is going to be bringing to the Indiana Pacers. So look no further than Adam Auslund from Clippers Talk, and this is a great friend of our friend Bob Schmidt, and they just did a podcast talking about Darius Garland for James Harden. I was like, Bob, can you set me up with Adam? I want to hear his thoughts on Zubac going to the Pacers. I want to hear his thoughts on Mathurin, plus this draft capital and Isaiah Jackson going to the Clippers. I want to know more about Kobe Brown. So got that connection made, got this interview done, and it was a lot of fun. It was a really good conversation, and it really kind of paints a picture of what Zubac can bring to Indiana with Haliburton, with Siakam, what he is as a big man, what his weaknesses are, what his strengths are. Could he become a three-point shooter? Is that something that was in the works for the Clippers? He didn't show it on the court, but behind the scenes, was there some work going on? So just a lot of interesting stuff to know more about our guy, Ivica Zubac, the new center of the Indiana Pacers. So a lot of high praise from Adam Auslund. I will just go ahead and tease that, but you're going to hear why in this episode. So without further ado, let's take a quick commercial break and then get right into it. All right, everybody, joining us now from Clippers Talk, it is Adam Auslund. Adam, I appreciate you for coming on and joining me to talk about probably one of the most surprising trades that I think a lot of people didn't see coming at the trade deadline, and that's the Pacers getting Zubac for some picks, Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson, Kobe Brown's in the deal. So, first of all, what was your reaction when you saw that this trade was going down?
I would say surprised, but not shocked. It wasn't that extreme, only because I heard last night, I think, who was it, Keith Smith? Somebody had this out there that the Pacers were in hot pursuit of Ivica Zubac still. But then the latest reports were the Clippers were asking for so much that it made it seem unlikely it would actually get done. It did. You got one of the pillars, the longest tenured Clipper that has been representing this team very well since he came over from the Lakers for Mike Muscala. Thank you, Magic Johnson.
Well, I want to start with what took place earlier this week when James Harden asked basically for a trade, gets traded to the Cavaliers for Darius Garland. It kind of felt like maybe the Clippers were shifting a little bit here and more open to trying to turn some of these older players into some young talent. And so you go from a 36-year-old James Harden to a 26-year-old Darius Garland. Now you go from a 29-year-old Zubac to a 23-year-old Mathurin. What did that move for Garland kind of maybe change the thinking for the Clippers?
Yeah, I think there was a ripple effect there because James Harden worked really well with Ivica Zubac, and he helped turn him into a much more consistent force on the offensive end last season. Of course, you guys will have no problems with Haliburton working with Zubac the same way. But maybe because they brought in Darius Garland and with his speed versus James Harden's slower pace, they want to see, is there a better center that matches the play style now of Darius Garland? And also just take this team into a slightly different direction. While Kawhi Leonard's still there, he's now the longest tenured Clipper. They have been working through a youth movement because Kobe Sanders has been playing a lot this season, their rookie. Jordan Miller is in the rotation because they had so many injuries. And Clipper Nation for a while has been wondering, when are some of these young guys going to play? When are we going to turn the page and kind of get to that point where we know a new era is on the horizon? Well, it's here now. Even though Kawhi Leonard is still with the team, it feels very different. This is a pretty drastic makeover. I actually thought more guys would be moved after Ivica Zubac and that domino fell. I was kind of surprised Bogey's still with the team. Brooke Lopez is still with the team. But this is them really shifting into, we're still trying to compete, but we do have to put more of an emphasis on the future right now rather than just trying to win and get as far as we can with this squad this season. We got to look towards the future.
When you looked at the return that the Clippers got for Zubac, what was your initial reaction to the players and the picks that the Clippers got?
All the talk had circled around Mathurin. It took a while. My goodness, it must have taken 15 minutes or something like that to see what the return was going to be after Shams originally broke the news, and we were sweating it for a while. But I assumed Mathurin would be involved, a couple of first-round picks. But everybody was wondering, is it going to be the 2026 first-round pick? Obviously, you guys are in a gap year right now, third worst record in the league, waiting for Hallie to come back. You'll be back in contention next season. And they were able to get that, but with some stipulations and caveats in there, with it being top 4 protected and then 10 through 30 protected on the back end. So this is something where We're going to be watching the draft lottery very closely for the first time in a long time. The Clippers have not had a top 10 pick since I think 2010 with Al Farouk Aminu. Like this has been a team that has, with Doc Rivers in the front office for a while, president of basketball operations. They just didn't value their picks enough. And then you have the big SGA trade, and they don't own their first round pick until 2030 right now. So it's big for them to kind of fill back up the cupboards and the war chest, getting a couple of picks from you guys, one in 2019, obviously, and then this one where at best we're hoping you guys end up getting the fifth pick. That would go to us because I think there's 5 maybe possible franchise players in this draft. But if you hold on to it, it gets bumped back to a 2031 unrestricted first round pick. So one way or another, we're getting 2 first round picks from you eventually. But I think the compensation makes sense. I think that's about in the ballpark we were looking for. And I'm a big Bennedict Mathurin fan, watching him in Arizona out here on the West Coast for a long time. So it felt right, as much as it's bittersweet because I love Ivica Zubac. He is my favorite Clipper over the past 6 years now. This is what it would take to get a deal done because they were really in no position where they had to trade him. Ivica Zubac still is on, as you know now, a really cap-friendly contract the next 2 seasons. They could have waited till this summer. They could have done it next year. It's not like they were forced to do anything. They still could have got value back. So I think it was a fair trade, and both sides will be able to benefit here.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a pretty fair deal for both sides. And Pacer fans were a little torn on giving up on Mathurin, highest draft pick since the 1980s, 6 overall pick. So, 23 years old. He's averaging almost 18 points a game this year. I mean, he's really kind of coming to his own offensively. Still some kinks to work out on the defensive side of things and can be a little ball watchy sometimes, but he's gotten a lot better overall and just developed quite a bit in this system. So I'll be fascinated to see what a new opportunity is for him. I think that for Pacer fans and for the front office of the Pacers, the biggest reason why that they were looking to move on from Mathurin is because he would have more value at the trade deadline than he would in the offseason where he is a restricted free agent. Now you're dealing with sign and trades, offer sheets. Things can get messy. You have him under team control right now. It's around $9 million. Pair that with Jackson, and you mentioned it. Zubac's contract is unbelievable. And the Pacers had about $5.6 million of wiggle room under that luxury tax. So by doing this deal, they didn't have to send out as much to get Zubac back. And then I think he got that $2.4 million trade kick or something like that. So it put the Pacers like right up there, very close to that space they had between the luxury tax and whatnot to get this deal done at the trade deadline versus in the summer. But I do think that for Mathurin, though, specifically, he wants to start. And I think there is going to be an opportunity for him to start unless you think he might still come off the bench.
I think that possibility is real. I actually asked Coach Lue yesterday pregame before their game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, because that's when Darius Garland and that trade became official. If he sees a better or a different backcourt mate next to Darius Garland versus who he had with Chris Dunn next to James Harden, just somebody that complements Darius Garland better. And he said, we'll see. We're going to work through this. So it sounds like that's a real possibility. But at the very end, he said, he kind of gave me, I don't know, a wry smile. Like, that's a very good question. And looking back at it today, I think they knew that this trade was in the works or a possibility. And Coach Lue doesn't often say, good question to anybody. So people were looking over and be like, hey, nice, you teacher's pet or something like that. Way to go. But now it reads a little bit differently to me. And I think long term, that would be the goal, to have Bennedict Mathurin as the number 2 next to Darius Garland. I like that also. I still think it would be Chris Dunn's job to lose for now, just because he's such a good defender out there and a ball hawk and a dog on that end. But they need to figure out, as you mentioned, the restricted free agency coming up for Bennedict Mathurin, who he is as a player in this Clippers ecosystem right away. So they do have to play him heavy minutes and see what they have.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious because Pacer fans were like, you got to sign Mathurin at all costs. And then others were saying, well, it depends on how much he's, seeking. Do you give him what he's asking for? And people were guessing around 20 to 25 million is probably the price range he's going to be looking for. I don't know what you're thinking would be a fair number for the Clippers, but I do think that if there is a chance for him to start, it makes more sense to kind of bring him back on that number because it's pretty fair value. But if he's coming off the bench and he's maybe not in a role that he is desiring as a bench guy, it could be kind of questionable to match any offer sheet or overpay him if he's not going to be content in a different role.
I kind of thought about him as I graded young guys that had some risk or weren't developed in certain areas, just somewhat flawed young players that could be available. I had him in there with like LaMelo Ball and Jonathan Kuminga, and he is in that Jonathan Kuminga area a little bit to me. I think he's more developed as a basketball player, and I mean he had multiple 20-point games in the NBA Finals for you guys. But just in knowing, he has a higher ceiling, he hasn't reached it yet. You mentioned his defense. I felt like coming out of Arizona, he'd be one of the best defensive players in the draft, and that hasn't seemed to really materialize at the highest level yet. Can the Clippers get more out of him? So, yeah, 20 to 25 million would make sense to me, but only if the fit is there, and that's something they're going to have to figure out quickly. But they can't also, if you give up a Ivica Zubac and he's part of that deal, you better get something for him. Either he stays a Clipper or you do a sign and trade with him as a restricted free agent or something like that. I don't think that would be good asset management if all of a sudden they just lost him for nothing because he had a bad 2-month run with them.
Yeah, that and see that's kind of the problem the Pacers were in. Like they didn't want to have to potentially lose him for nothing after just losing Miles Turner for nothing, and I do think that played a factor into how they were handling this trade deadline versus maybe how they would have handled it had they not lost Turner. Maybe they would have been more willing to go into the offseason to see what was there. But everybody knows the Pacers are not a team that pays a tax, and so offer sheets, people will be willing to sign them to try to test the Pacers and see if they will actually do it. And I know the Clippers were supposed to have around, $50 million in cap space this upcoming offseason?
They could. I think it's around, 45, 50 million. And that's with Darius Garland, but it's not accounting for whatever Bennedict Mathurin is going to be getting.
Yeah. So I know they will have the cap hold on them, so it could be interesting there, but they could still make some moves to continue to make this roster a little bit younger. Now, it would be interesting to see if they went after Walker Kessler now. With
the Clippers?
Yeah.
Ooh, I think Danny Ainge is like, you're going to have to give up 3 first-round picks for him because some of the reporting came out that you guys made a run at Walker Kessler and then pivoted to Ivica Zubac because the Utah Jazz are asking for so much. And I think he's a restricted free agent coming up.
Yeah, which is what I was getting at, because if you guys have that money to give it to him, you could potentially go after him with your restricted free with your money, your salary cap money.
It's interesting. Danny Ainge is shrewd and tough to deal with, and they just brought in Triple J. I've been of the understanding that maybe Marketing would be the easier guy to get out of them right now, but he also has already been paid. So I don't know. They're in flux and they're trying to hold on to their top 8 protected pick.
Yeah. No, I mean it's just interesting. I'm just saying if you lose Zubac, John Collins is going to be a free agent. Brooke Lopez.
Hey, look. If they can get Walker Kessler, I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong.
That would be insane if they were able to use their cap space to get him. Just throwing that out there. And, Tim McMahon did say on the Hoop Collective that there's a number that the Jazz want to bring him in at, and there's a number he thinks he's worth, and his number he thinks he's worth is higher than what they want to bring him in at. So we'll see if there's anybody out there to test him. But wouldn't surprise me if the Clippers jump in on this with them getting Zubac, giving him up to the Pacers for the package they got back. But you mentioned something earlier that I thought was fascinating. You said, I thought maybe they would transition from Zubac once they got Darius Garland because he plays too fast. And James Harden's more of a slow, methodical point guard. That has been a question mark for a lot of Pacer fans coming into this trade is, does he even fit the Pacer system? Can they play this style they normally play with him on the court? So how do you maybe envision Zubac fitting in with a faster paced Pacers team with Nembhard, Nesmith, Siakam, and Haliburton?
Like, he's not the quickest guy because of his size, but I think he has good enough feet when you're talking about trapping and hedging screens and stuff like that. Zoo is an elite defender. He's a great rim protector. He finished 6th in DPOY last season, people don't realize, and he made an all-defensive team. And really, he didn't do much different than he had been doing the 5 years before. He just finally got the recognition for it because the Clippers' defense overall was so good because they had better point of attack defenders in front of him in Chris Dunn and Derek Jones Jr. I think you guys have some decent point of attack guys on this Pacers team that will help funnel guys towards Ivica Zubac, where he's been one of the best rim protectors in the league, since 2019. You look at the numbers, like he's been there with Rudy Gobert and better than him some years if you look at field goal percentage within 6 feet. But in terms of transition and stuff, it's not that Zubac can't do it. There have been, I don't know, there's been a faction of Clippers fans that have been against Ivica Zubac because here and there, he came in initially with some broken hands and he dropped some basketballs and he has some turnovers and he misses some catches on some passes here and there that you feel like, okay, how did he not get his hands on it? He's got butterfingers or something like that. He's had a reputation with that at times, but also just in general, motor motivation a little bit. He can be up and down, but last season wasn't really like that. He was so steady in his second full year with James Harden. And then this year, with everything that went wrong for the Clippers to start 6-21, like I don't put it on Ivica Zubac. I think him having a little bit of a down season compared to last year in the numbers overall, where he's averaging like 2 less points and 1 less rebound, I think it was a symptom of the overall just disease with this Clippers team early on. They got off to such a bad start. What he did last season is still in Ivica Zubac. I mean, if you look at games, if you want to check out games this season to get excited about, look what he did to Evan Mobley in Cleveland this year. They lost the game, but Ivica Zubac dominated. Look what he did against a game in Houston, I think it was, against the Rockets front line. Like, what you get with him is somebody that can really go to work on the block more than people would expect, but he can also finish and be a rim runner. He may not be a lead at it like he's Clint Capella or anything like that, but he's good. So he's more versatile. You'll see, I think he led the league in hook shots last season, and he can do it right hand, left hand, spinning. Zoo has more to his game that a lot of us Zoo truthers, the Zoothers in Clipper Nation forever, have been screaming about, saying this guy is not being fully unlocked. My line for Ivica Zubac for at least 3 or 4 seasons has been, there's an easier path to victory, and it's playing through Ivica Zubac more. I've said this about Ivica Zubac forever because you see games when he's featured more because it's been tough because they've had so much star power. He gets lost in the shuffle sometimes. With you guys, I hope there's more of an emphasis to just keep him involved consistently because there's still a better version of Ivica Zubac in there. But I think he'll be able to hang with your pace. He lost 10 pounds over the summer, and some people thought he lost too much weight or something like that. I don't think that had anything to do with his quote unquote down year. I think he'll be great for you guys, honestly.
I love to hear that, and I think that that's one thing that I was kind of thinking about in my head is like, I'm sure he can adjust to the pace the Pacers want to play, and I'm sure with how smart of a coach Rick Carlisle is, they're going to find schemes and system and thematics that are going to work to maximize his talent with this group, right? Because they wouldn't make this type of trade. Coach Carlisle and his staff would not sign off on this level of trade with the front office if they didn't think it could work. And Tyrese Haliburton obviously had to be in there expressing his opinions on this deal because the Pacers desperately needed a big guy. And one of the things that I've heard a lot of people talk about is just he can throw his weight around with so many of the best of the league that are down low. He's a physical presence. He's a brute. He's a force. And Carlisle mentioned today after practice, like this is one of the things that they've not had in a center in a long time that he brings to the table. So it'll be fascinating. And the other thing is the Pacers are kind of used to having a floor spacing big. Zubac has only taken 12 3-pointers in his entire career. So I don't expect that to be the case, but you saw it in the finals. Obi Toppin filled in serviceable at times in those moments when they needed a stretch five. And I think they could go to that at certain points in games if they needed to go to that and not have Zubac out there. So I think that really it just gives the Pacers so much more versatility in their front court because Pascal Siakam is a do-it-all kind of power forward where Obi Toppin can't do everything Pascal can do, and obviously Zubac can't do all the things that Pascal can do. But Zubac could potentially be an all-star here with the Pacers if he lives up to his potential and being in the East.
I truly believe that because you mentioned the outside shooting, by the way. There are people within Clipper Nation that believe that he can shoot from the outside, and he just hasn't been given the green light to do it. Wow. If you watch, this happened at the end of 2021, so he wanted to keep his Iron Man play all 82 game streak, and it was on the line in the very last game of the season, I think against the Houston Rockets. And so he starts and he plays the first 3 minutes. And actually, this was the Clippers playoff run to the Western Conference Finals. They had Rondo, And Rondo throws a pass back to him, and Zoo just knocks down a three-pointer. They call a timeout. They take him out of the game, so he played all 82 games, and it looks smooth. And he's been a good free throw shooter at times. That's regressed a little bit the last 2 seasons, but Zoo's touch is really remarkable. If you look 2 years ago from 5 to 9 feet out, he shot better in that space than Nikola Jokic, who, by the way, he is the best defender against one-on-one in the league, and there's really no comparison. You could say, well, Jokic had 55 against him earlier this season. Yeah, no kidding. He's Nikola Jokic. He's one of the greatest players ever. If you watch the playoff series between those two this past season, look at Nikola Jokic's numbers. Even though he's playing more minutes because it's a playoff series, the numbers are down slightly. Zubac gave them a chance to win that series just because he somewhat held Nikola Jokic in check or just right about his averages. Like he gets up for some of those matchups, especially against European guys like Jokic. Like, you could see there's a different level of fire in Ivica Zubac there, but he's elite in so many different ways, and I wouldn't be shocked if he makes an all-star team or two with you guys.
Yeah, how does he defend on the perimeter in terms of guarding bigs that maybe are more floor spacers, like your Karl Anthony Towns or even your Miles Turners?
He's solid. He's had a lot of practice against Luka Doncic because they played each other 3 times in a playoff series against the Dallas Mavericks, where Luka just matchup hunts, gets Zoo on the switch, pulls him out to the perimeter. And it's not that Ivica Zubac's defense is bad. It's that Luka's Luka and hits some of the most ridiculous, tough shots over the top against Ivica Zubac, where the defense is perfect and it just doesn't matter. But the point is, he has played on the perimeter a lot. While he is more of a drop big, and that's how the Clippers' defensive scheme has been for the most part, they will go up to hedge or up to touch enough against certain guys in a playoff series, and Zoo is capable of that. You know, he's one of those guys that has that rare ability to guard 2 players at once. If somebody is trying to drive on him, he's got to stay with his big man and also stay in front of that guard. He's good at it. He's legitimately one of the best rim defenders in the league, and this isn't something new. He's been this way for a long time. On the perimeter, like, you could say he's not Anthony Davis on the perimeter. Okay, there are guys that do it better than Ivica Zubac, but he's not some liability out there either where he's a drop big merchant or something like that.
Okay, that's good to know because I do know that the Mavericks were able to find advantages to kind of play him off the floor in some of those early playoff series, but it seems like
Bro, it's Luka. It's Luka.
Yeah.
And his defense was good. There was something weird where Luka got more confident when he just saw Ivica Zubac, even though his degree of difficulty on the shot was way harder. It was stupid.
Yeah, I mean, when Luka's locked in, he's hard to beat, right? So, I'm excited to see what he can do here with the Pacers. And so, before I transition real quick to Kobe Brown, I wanted to know, maybe, what do you think the biggest thing that Zubac is going to bring to this Pacers team in terms of, is it screen setting? Is it rolling? Is it being a lob threat? Or is it the defensive side of things? Where do you think he really helps this team the most?
I think his bread and butter is being the defensive anchor and holding things down. Some of people are going to look at his stats and go, why doesn't he get more blocks then? Because they don't test him at the rim very often because he's really good. But also, you're going to be shocked at how much he can be in offense when he's on the block. If you feature him, Zoo's really good there, and he's improved with his passing playing out of that when teams double team him. He's good in the short roll, which I'm sure he'll get a lot of opportunities with when they try to trap Tyrese Haliburton. Like, I can't say enough about this guy, but the bread and butter, the thing that has always been there, you can go back to some of his Lakers stuff, his first couple of seasons. His rim protection is really good, but he also right-handed hook, left-handed hook. Like, this has been in him forever. Zoo is extremely skilled, and I think he will shock people if you give him opportunities to show off his offense.
Just real quick about the short roll. Is he a good passer? Because I've heard some people say that could be a little bit shaky with his passing. How is he as a passer?
He's gotten better in the short roll. I would say he's average to above average.
Okay.
Like, for a big man, you're grading it off how he grades against other big men in a short roll. He's not a guard in that situation, but he's solid for a big man there.
Okay, that's fair. I wanted to make sure I heard it from you because you've been watching him every game, so I'm getting a better perspective from you that's been around him. So that's good to know. I just heard that he had a little bit of a loose handle at times and, would make some bad passes and throw it out of bounds and different things like that. I'm like, okay, I haven't watched enough film to really know what I'm talking about. So Wanted to get it from you.
It definitely happens here and there because so often they'll just sell out on stopping James Harden, and that guy in the short roll has to make a decision, and it's often Ivica Zubac, but he's gotten a lot of reps
Mhm.
because of that, and he's gotten better in it the last couple of years.
All right, let's quickly transition to Kobe Brown, who is also a part of this deal, and someone probably that gets a little bit lost in the shuffle, which is understandable. There's a lot of moving pieces here, but um, what does Kobe Brown bring to this Pacers team, and what was he doing for the Clippers? I know the numbers aren't really great or anything like that, but was it more of just a not a good opportunity there, or was he just not living up to expectations?
The swing skill with Kobe Brown has never materialized in the NBA, and that's three-point shooting. If you go back to his college stats at Mizzou with the Tigers, so he went from a non three-point shooter to his last year, his senior year, shooting 46% from three. And the idea of him was that was going to translate to the big leagues, and it just hasn't. While he can do a lot of things decently, like he can handle the rock a little bit, he's a decent rebounder, he's a decent passer, the shot hasn't been there, and he's not stretching the floor, and he's not demanding to be guarded. It just hasn't happened. It's not like he doesn't work on it. He's a hard worker. I think some of it's probably mental because when you only get so many opportunities with the big group out there, there's a lot of pressure to knock those shots down. But he's 26 now, so he was an older guy when he came out, and the Clippers didn't pick up his option for next season, and we knew the writing was on the wall that he would be one of the guys moved during this transaction period, this trade deadline. I like him. He's a really nice guy. He's a good guy. He's a hard worker. There's no issues there. Great locker room guy. It's just if he hits three pointers, he can become a valuable piece in this league because he kind of is like a jack of all trades, master of none. The idea was, can he be like some poor man's Draymond Green? Because he's on the bigger side, but his handle is decent. He could bring it into the front court. He has decent instincts with just making reads out there. But you got to be able to shoot the ball a little bit in this league now, and that hasn't materialized for him.
That'll be interesting to see if the Pacers can help him improve on that. I know that Rick Carlisle did mention that for Isaiah Jackson, they have been really trying to work on him with his three-point shooting and just get him to
Oh,
be a bit
really?
better. Yeah, and honestly, it's funny because like it was his second year, and we always talk about this in this podcast, but it was the game Mathurin like went off against the Nuggets in the first quarter, and Jokic was out there. It was a great game. It came down to the wire, but Ijax was out there, and it wasn't a three, but it was a step back 18-footer that he like just swished on the baseline, and it was like, whoa, he could do that. And then the other play, which I said I wasn't going to bring up anymore on this podcast because I do it all the time when I talk about him, is the defensive stop that he had on Jason Tatum in the Eastern Conference Finals, where he got switched on a pick and roll or a pick and pop, whatever, and got switched on the pick, and he stood his ground with Jason Tatum and then blocked his jump shot. And I'm like, whoa, if he can do this, he's going to be a problem. The problem is he tore his Achilles last year, and as he's come back from that, he has not looked the same. Just a little bit loose with his handle. Now, he is a good passer. Rick Carlisle has really praised that as well. But the three-point shooting, it's not really been something he's done a whole lot of. He took some in some like open scrimmage games they had for the fans, and Rick Carlisle's like, yeah, I know you guys saw that, but don't expect that a lot in the games. It's not something that we're just like giving him the green light to do, but I think that it's a work in progress. So we'll see if he can kind of develop that. But the Pacers staff, their coaching staff, they really do a good job of trying to work on shots. And I know Andrew Nembhard's shot has improved since he's been here, and Jenny Busick has kind of been the doctor behind all of that, Pacers assistant coach. So I'll be curious to see if she works a little bit with Kobe Brown and or Ivica Zubac as I try to maybe get him to be more of a floor spacing big on occasion. So that could be unique there. But, we didn't talk about Ijax much, but if he can get back to who he was 2 years ago, like the player that we saw in that Eastern Conference Finals against the Celtics and some of that semifinals against the Knicks when the Pacers won that 1-7 in the Garden, I think the Clippers have a decent backup big. He was a starter this year, but had like a 13-game absence with a concussion injury from Neemias Queta's elbow, and coming back from the Achilles and then going through that and then having to get all your conditioning back up. It's been a work in progress for him. So I viewed him kind of as a negative asset because they signed him to a 3-year, $21 million deal in the offseason, but it descends each year, which I think is going to be helpful for the Clippers. And, opportunity for him. He had one of his best games, I think it was a rookie, against the Clippers back in 21-22. So he's got some
I remember.
pop, but it's come and go a lot for him.
Can I ask you a little bit about Bennedict Mathurin? Because the Clippers fan base almost became a little bit split on Ivica Zubac. Most of them really liked him, of course, but some would just focus on the negatives. Whenever he dropped a pass, oh, he has butterfingers, or whenever he wasn't fully locked in, oh, he looks slow out there and he's lazy and he doesn't care. A lot of the stuff that big men get thrown at them when they don't play to their size or their potential. Is Bennedict Mathurin, was it split with you guys in just what to do with him?
Yeah, I would say that most of the fan base was kind of ready to move on from what I heard. There was a handful that were like, this is going to be one of the worst mistakes ever. Great scorer, 23 years old. Like, that was kind of the narrative. But if you look at a lot of the numbers, he wasn't impacting the game as much as maybe you would hope that he was. And so Rick Carlisle had a short leash with him, especially in the playoffs. I don't know if you saw that or not, but he would come in and like some games he would play, 25 minutes and have 27 points and be like lights out. And then other games he'd play like 12 minutes. And Ben Shepherd would play more than him off the bench because Ben Shepherd was just playing locked in defense and things like that. So it was a big deal. Carlisle mentioned it for Mathurin to be named the starter this offseason when Haliburton went down with the injury. Carlisle wouldn't commit to it on any podcast appearances he was doing until he finally said Mathurin's going to be our starter, like probably like 3 weeks after he had done another one. So just thought it was interesting that he was very hesitant to like commit to anybody at that spot when everybody kind of already knew who it was going to be Mathurin. So he's just one of these players that I think they were trying to push him to do more. They like to play this, pass and cut offense. And a lot of times the ball would get sticky with Mathurin because he's an isolation scorer and he's a guy that draws a lot of fouls and he can get to the free throw line. And that's when he's at his best. When he's getting 25 points on 10 free throw attempts a game, like that's when you're seeing the best version of Ben Mathurin. His 3-point shot has been really impressive, especially the pull-up three. You'll see that from occasion where he'll just like start netting stuff. But I think the fan base kind of understood the situation for the most part. Like, can't really pay a guy $25 million if he's going to come off the bench and you're trying to also address your center need, right? I think if they had their center in place and they were going to bring him back, it would have been more of a shock to see him go. But knowing that he was going to be the guy to kind of help them get their starting center was huge. And they couldn't just make a deal for any center, though. It couldn't be a Daniel Gaffer for Ben Mathurin type of deal because that would have been really feel like you're selling low on Mathurin. So getting him for Zubac to me was wow, okay, like that makes a lot of sense. You're upgrading at center significantly. You're moving off a guy that could not be back here next year if he goes to restricted free agency. Maybe he doesn't want to come off the bench long term. So you kind of address a lot of situations here and issues here that could potentially present itself. But I think in terms of the fan base, yeah, there's obvious flaws. You're gonna notice it. Screen navigation from Ben Mathurin can be tough at times. That's kind of one of his downfalls.
Is his defense, like, is it there but just not consistent? Like, where is he at with his defensive acumen?
That would be a great way to describe it, in my opinion, because he's better on ball than he is off ball. He gets caught ball watching quite a bit. And then when he's playing on-ball defense, the moment he gets a screen set on him, he does not fight through the screen. He immediately wants to switch. So maybe Ty Lue can work that out of him a little bit more. I forget what game it was earlier in the year, but he went back, he like sprinted back down court and got a block that like kind of saved the game. And he came into the media room or the post-game press conference room and was like, did you guys see that block? You see how fast I sprinted down there to get it? So it's kind of like Ben Mathurin is very confident. I mean, that's one thing you like about him. He can handle tough coaching. He's got a lot of swag to him. Super nice guy. Loves the fan base. I posted a story today on Twitter where I saw about an 8-year-old kid yelling, Mr. Mathurin, you're my favorite player. And he walks out of his way after he had just done his warm-up to give him an autograph, Pacers basketball, and talk to him and different things like that. So I mean, he is just a great individual human being, and you're going to get great quotes out of him because he can't help himself sometimes. But he is just he's a polarizing personality, but on the court, you're going to love the offense, especially if it's, where he can kind of do his thing as a scorer. But you're going to be frustrated, I think, at times defensively if he doesn't live up to what they want him to do defensively with the scheme. Because when Ben Shepherd is playing over you in the playoffs at time because you can't navigate screens very well or you're just losing a guy because you're ball watching, giving up a corner three to OG and an OB in a close Eastern Conference Finals game is not going to keep you on the court. You know what I mean?
I'm hoping our defensive coordinator, Jeff Van Gundy, is able to light a fire underneath him on that end like we've seen with other players.
If
I
there's
do wanna
anybody that
mention,
can do it, I think it'll be JVG.
you brought up Daniel Gafford a second ago. If any Pacers fans wanna see who Ivica Zubac is and can be, watch game 1, Clippers, Dallas 2024 first round series. Zubac just absolutely dominated Daniel Gafford and the Dallas Mavericks, and you'll see his potential there.
Yeah, I will be honest with you, like, when I saw Daniel Gafford's name, I was like, "That's the best they can do? Okay, if this is the best they can do, like, it's an upgrade over J. Huff, don't get me wrong, like, J. Huff, Isaiah Jackson, Micah Potter, it's a very, very, very underwhelming center group, so to have it almost feels like having an adult in the room, right? At that spot, it's like, okay, finally, I feel like that I can trust what's going on here now. Just to have someone that's so reliable, and there was times, Turner really had stepped up quite a bit once Haliburton got there. So I'm kind of curious. You talk about the James Harden thing, and a couple things here lastly before we go. How much do you think Tyrese Haliburton can elevate the game of Zubats?
I think it'll be great for him because Halliburton, like nobody ISOs as much as James Harden. Like he's a generational isolation player. And Halliburton, he does some of that, of course. But I think you mentioned the ball movement and the cutting with you guys on the offensive end. The Clippers are so heavy ISO with James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, two of the best ISO players ever. If you just have one next to Ivica Zubac more or a guy who's ISO light compared to James Harden, I'm interested how much better he can be in that situation where he's not just standing around at times because you know how it is with big men. What did Shaq used to say? If you want the dog to protect the house, you got to feed it. To get the best out of any big man, you got to get him involved more on the offensive end. And Zoo is very, very capable there. And Tyrese Halliburton's such a willing passer and such a great player. And I man, I love that guy. His joy of the game, I think, is going to mesh really well with the Ivica Zubac, who cares deeply about basketball. You're going to fall in love with his personality. Like he's just a genuine, down to earth, good guy.
I'm glad you brought that up because I meant to ask you about him earlier. Just not just personality off the court, but is he a quiet guy on the court or is he a very vocal guy? Because some guys can be a little bit more laid back, and he seems like he's more of a laid back personality. But wasn't sure if he was like a vocal defensive guy, where maybe he's a little quieter on the offensive end, or what have you seen from him on that standpoint?
He'll definitely talk defensively. He'll get into it with guys. Him and Kawhi have gotten into it multiple times when there's missed assignments defensively, and Zoo will talk back. Ivica Zubac has some fire in him. Like once you get him going, especially I've liked him and his competitive nature in big games. I mentioned going up against the other European centers in the playoffs. Like Zoo senses when to lock in. Our play-by-play guy on the TV side, Brian Seaman, would always talk about like competitive integrity and just he's a guy who loves to compete out there. And he doesn't miss many games, maybe to a detriment this season, and that's another reason his numbers were a little bit down. I think he was playing hurt a lot, playing through it. Nothing serious, but just banged up, enough where most guys would have sat, and he just doesn't. So he wants to play, he loves the game, and he understands the responsibility of being an NBA player. And he also, if you go to the games or if you're a member of the press and the media and you talk to these guys in the locker room afterwards, like nobody's more gracious than Ivica Zubac. He will talk to you for a while and tell you exactly what he thinks about something. So he's a great guy to get to just talk ball with, I think.
That's great. I love to hear that because I know that some guys can be a little bit guarded. They might not want to say too much to the media, but it's good to know that he'll be a little bit more open to that and just give you his opinion. So, Adam, man, it's been a fun conversation. I still can't believe the Pacers got Zubats. I'm trying to figure out what they're going to do because they got to try to keep this pick protected. Will Zubats even report to the Pacers before the trade or before the All-Star break? I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I do know that it's going to be an interesting couple of months here as we watch both these teams navigate this development with these new rosters. And then, of course, this lottery. It's going to be interesting. We'll maybe have to do another podcast once we get the results of the lottery and see what's going on there. Maybe a live reaction with you and my co-host would be quite the interesting watch party here with a Clippers fan and two Pacers fans. I don't know how you'd feel about that, but it would be quite the heartbreak if the Pacers lose that pick. But I also think that if it's 5-9, I'm not going to be too worried about it because I do like the top four significantly more.
You guys got a good one in Ivica Zubac, so take solace in that. I know you gave up a lot, but I think you're going to be happy with this big man because I woke up earlier from a nap after streaming for like 3 hours, and it finally hit me that Zubac is gone, and I got a little bit emotional. Like that's how I feel about this player. He's my favorite Clipper. He was. I'll follow him forever, and I'm a Pacers fan. That's my East Coast team now, just because of Ivica Zubac. I'll be watching.
All right, man. Sounds good. And where can people find all of your work on social media?
Get to me at Follow Adam A on X. Just search Clippers Talk on the YouTube side as well and wherever you podcast.
All right, everybody. If you guys want to keep an eye on Bennedict Mathurin, see how he's doing out with the Clippers, check out Adam and all their work as they cover this team and continue to move forward with Darius Garland and a new look Clippers. And if you guys enjoyed this conversation and you're from the Clippers side of things and you want to watch the Pacers and see how they're doing, we'd love to have you guys be on our show and let us know what you guys think. So, Pacer Nation, Clipper Nation, hope you all have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you all soon. Peace out.